Welcome to The Story. I'm Blair Best, in for Pat Doris. We begin tonight's show in Southeast Portland, right outside the city's first large sanctioned campsite for homeless people. It's been open for just over a month now and can hold about 200 people. Now, part of the agreement that the city has made with the surrounding neighborhood is that it wouldn't become a magnet for unsanctioned homeless camps, and that no camps would be allowed within 1,000 feet of the site. But as you can see, homeless camps are already starting to pop up well within that zone. And that is our big story tonight.
And we have a small debt of gratitude.
In July, the city of Portland opened the first of 6 temporary alternative shelter sites. It's located in the Clinton Triangle off Southeast Powell Boulevard and Gideon Street.
We have the funding for the first 3 sites.
3 months prior to the big day, city officials met nearly a dozen times with the surrounding neighborhood associations to address concerns about the site and to build a good neighbor agreement. Part of that agreement prohibits homeless camping within 1,000 feet of the site and requires Urban Alchemy, the California-based group hired to run it, to clean and patrol the perimeter. This week, tents and trash filled parts of that perimeter.
Up here is a lot easier just because you can catch transit a lot better.
Crystal knows the area well, having been homeless in Southeast for 5 years.
Like all the way up to like 90th and back down.
Her latest spot? The train tracks that run next to the city's mass shelter site, where she says her friend stays.
They have a lot of cool stuff in there, like they have heaters and they have air conditioners.
Despite those crucial amenities, she would rather camp about 200 feet away.
It is kind of scary. I don't know. I have high anxiety, so I don't know how it is for normal people. But for me, it's scary. It's a scary thing.
We told her about the no camping within 1,000 feet rule.
I didn't know that rule. It's kind of stupid to me because if they wanted to get more homeless up off the streets, you would think that they would maybe reverse that law or that rule. And have it where you would want to set up your tent within 1,000 feet of them so they could know that where you are and get you on a list or something, instead of the reverse of that,
She says an outreach worker tried getting her into the site, but they lost contact with each other. And it's people like her camping so close to the site that's now impacting those who work and live nearby. Like Dwayne Brown, who works at a wholesale company off Southeast 17th Avenue.
I'm almost numb anymore to the homeless situation because, I've been sworn at. I've had to do all of the nasty stuff that, comes with the homeless population.
Now, this situation is somewhat tricky in that these camps are on private railroad property, not city property, meaning it's up to the railroad companies to remove them.
The city says, well, I can't touch it. It's railroad property. And the railroad property says, well, I don't have the resources to do anything about it. It's okay. So now what do we do?
Union Pacific Railroad tells KGW they are working consistently to address illegal camping issues on their properties across Portland. And on Thursday, we found a campsite removal notice along one set of the tracks from TriMet, dated August 29th. These companies are relying on people to report camps that pop up on railroad property, but doing so is no easy task.
That tug of war back and forth happened quite a bit. It's gotten better. We have contact names with the railroad and with the city, and we can email, and the whole block gets together.
According to the city, outreach workers from Urban Alchemy walk through the surrounding neighborhoods daily, connecting with homeless people. And the city wants business owners to call that group if they have concerns.
I think that, the city needs to ramp up those resources to get to that level. And I don't think they're quite there yet.
And like many efforts to address homelessness in Portland, it's a work in progress. Now, we heard from the mayor's office today, and they said the 1,000-foot no camping rule was intended to reduce the burden on the surrounding community. But that policy does not overwrite jurisdiction. So basically, since the camps are on railroad property, the city can't legally do anything about it. Now, the mayor says he is sympathetic to the neighbors who are frustrated, though. And he is closely tracking this and working with railroad leaders to find ways of responding more quickly to camps along the train tracks. As for Urban Alchemy's role in all of this, they don't tell homeless people to pack up and leave. Instead, they try to engage with them and get them into the shelter site. It's up to the city's impact reduction team to remove camps. Now, we're also told the mayor's team is building a weekly security meeting with Urban Alchemy, Portland Police, TriMet, and railroad officials. In these meetings, they plan to talk about camp issues like these. Well, you're going to want to stick around for Straight Talk with Laurel Porter tonight at 7 o'clock right here on KGW. This week, her guest is Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt. He's running for re-election in 2024, but things are much different now than they were during his win in the 2020 election, with Schmidt bearing much of the brunt of criticism and blame for crime here in Portland. And part of that equation, according to many of you, are drugs and Measure 110. Now, Laurel asked him if he still supports 110 now that we're nearly 3 years in.
A lot of people are saying it's an unmitigated disaster, Measure 110. Do you still support Measure 110?
So I supported Measure 110. I think like 60% of Oregonians that voted for that measure, because ultimately I believe that addiction is a health issue. It should be treated in the health system. When I go talk to community members, I do this thing where I say, hey, raise your hand if you know somebody who's been affected by addiction. And every hand goes up. Almost everybody in their life knows somebody. And I say, picture that person in your mind. Now keep your hand up if you think what they needed was to go to jail or prison for that addiction. And the hands go back down. When we talk about how this affects us personally, I think people get it. They understand. And that's why Oregonians decided to give this a try. I think there are things that we could improve upon Measure 110, and I think we need to be looking at that openly and honestly. Obviously, the money hitting our streets was too slow. The rollout was too slow. I'm happy that I was just at, a week ago, a ribbon cutting for a fentanyl detox facility in Multnomah County, first of its kind, funded by Measure 110 dollars. I was at another one not too previous to that. So I'm starting to see voters wanted it 2 years ago, as did I. And so I think one is we got to see the investments start to go out. But prior to 110, Oregon ranked like 49th in the country for access to those treatment services. We got to fix that. That's a big part of it. On the second half, on the open use on the streets, I agree. It makes people feel unsafe. It leads to feelings of disorder, and in fact, sometimes is actually making people less safe. I live in this community. I've got a family. I don't like it as much as anybody else. I think that's something that I'm talking with legislators and others about. What can we do about open use on our streets and making sure that we're getting folks into treatment. Going back to criminalization is not going to fix the problem unless there's a connection to treatment. And we have people in drug courts right now that are still waiting 60, 90, 120 days to get into treatment. We got to fix that if this is going to work.
Now, Laurel also asked if Schmidt would support mandatory drug treatment if parts of 110 are adjusted, as well as what should be done about the shortage of public defenders. You can watch the full episode next at 7 o'clock or on the KGW YouTube channel. Well, high school and college football season is here, but nobody is celebrating their team's record just yet. Everyone starts the season with 0 wins and 0 losses. But off the field and in Washington state courtrooms, there is a celebration of sorts when it comes to wins and losses. Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson says he's undefeated when defending state gun laws from lawsuits, and he got another victory today. This latest case concerns House Bill 1240, the new law that bans the sale, manufacture, and import of assault weapons. The law has some exceptions for police and the military and does not ban the possession of the weapons. So how is assault weapon defined? Well, here's the list of over 60 specific firearms that are banned, and the law includes all of them, regardless of what company produces them. And you'll see some you may recognize: AK-47, M16, the list goes on and on. Today, Thurston County Superior Court Judge Allison Zip rejected a request for a preliminary injunction to block the law. And the same judge rejected a similar motion to block the law back in late June. In fact, it's the third time in less than 3 months that a Washington judge has ruled the assault weapons ban should remain in effect while legal challenges continue. In a victory lap press release this morning. Attorney General Ferguson wrote, "My legal team remains undefeated against the gun lobby in court. This common sense gun reform will save lives by restricting access to the preferred weapon of mass shooters." There is one more challenge to the assault weapons ban currently pending in federal court in eastern Washington. And it's worth noting that the Evergreen state is the 10th U.S. state to implement restrictions on assault weapons. So there's plenty of precedent from lawsuits in other states to draw on. Washington is not necessarily a pioneer in banning assault weapons, but it's not for lack of trying. The 2023 session was the 7th year in a row that Ferguson proposed a law like this. It marked the 2nd year that Governor Inslee joined him pushing for the legislation, and that persistence paid off. Now, when it comes to controversial gun laws, Washington is not alone. Oregon's voter-approved Measure 114 has been ruled constitutional in federal court, but a state case has the law on pause. The trial in that state case is scheduled to begin in just over 2 weeks on September 18th, and you can bet we'll be watching. Well, still to come on this story, we'll head back to the state of Washington for another dilemma involving guns. But this time, it's around not assault weapons, but antique firearms. We'll tell you how a rifle from the early 1900s helped change a law more than a century later in 2023. That's when the story returns. In the state of Washington, nearly a decade ago, voters passed an initiative requiring background checks for all gun sales and transfers. But there was a thin sliver of society that was not at the table when the initiative was written: museums. Fast forward to today in Cowlitz County, and a rifle from more than a century ago that spent much of its life under a couch became the catalyst for statewide change. Drew Mickelson has the story.
They are part of material culture that tells the human story.
The Cowlitz County Historical Museum already has firearms.
You would pull the hammer back.
But only one of the rifles here truly changed history.
I think it was one of those things where a law with good intentions was written, but not everybody was at the table to voice some possible concerns.
In 2014, voters passed an initiative requiring background checks for the transfer or sale of any firearms. Since background checks cannot be conducted on museums, the law prohibited the donation of firearms.
All records indicate that this rifle was produced in 1904.
Hans Schaffes bought this Remington rifle when he was a teen, and it sat under his family's couch for decades until 2 years ago when he tried donating it to the museum and was told he couldn't.
You always like to think of some generation beyond your own that will come to appreciate it.
There's, of course, many controversies regarding firearms in America and firearms in Washington state, but they are part of our history.
The failed donation caused museum director Joseph Gavednik to contact state legislators, and earlier this year, they changed the law to allow for firearm donations.
Don't be afraid to reach out to them. That's what they're here for. They work for us. They are our representatives, and they need to know what the needs are in our community.
And they voted unanimously. Members of both parties agreed guns belong in museums.
Hans had no idea when he found this rifle under his couch after all these years that this .22 single-shot rifle would be the catalyst for this kind of a change.
Well, the museum director says he doesn't know when or how the rifle will be displayed, but he says it could be part of an exhibit on civil engagement, proof that having an idea and getting involved can turn into a new law. Well, coming up next on the story, we're going to stick with our history theme. A group of 5 women led the charge to save an old schoolhouse in Oregon City from the wrecking ball. How it went from the brink of demolition to finding a new home and purpose for years to come, when the story returns. Well, we've got a special segment for you tonight. It's all about a journey that was less than a mile long, but covered nearly a century of history. It all has to do with a schoolhouse in Oregon City that came within a day of being demolished. Catherine Cook and photographer Kurt Austin show us how a community led by 5 special women saved it.
In Oregon City,
well, it's been sort of a landmark in the community.
This landmark,
affectionately known as the Old White Building,
clearly belongs on a pedestal.
5 generations of our family have gone to Kara School, myself included. We have a personal interest in this building.
Cindy Lou Evans-Pease.
My 2 sons went here.
Can carve.
My father went here.
Her family tree.
My grandmother went here.
Right on these boards.
Now my granddaughter goes here, currently in the 3rd grade. The 7th generation of our family.
Boards that came from her family's trees. Her grandfather, Clarence Evans, helped build the school in 1926.
The material for the building, the trees, were logged from Clarence's farm and milled there. And it's been here ever since. My mother, who was born in 1926, went to school here.
Milt Ritter's grandfather was also on the building crew.
We have sort of deep connections here.
And Milt's wife, Chris.
A lot of fond memories.
Take a guess.
I was a teacher at this school starting in 1974, and I spent 30 years teaching here.
By then, students had moved here. The new Karis Elementary School, a stone's throw away. But for 97 years, this 2-room schoolhouse has remained until now.
Canby School District wants to expand the parking lot, and this is in the way.
The district was going to demolish the old white building if it wasn't moved by July 1st.
Yeah, I guess we're...
The day...
It's getting right down there.
After this one.
A couple weeks ago, we had another mover involved that sort of crapped out, and we thought, okay, we're done.
And I went, oh, no, 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 demolish.
Chris talked to these guys, and they said, yeah, we just had a cancellation. We can start on it tomorrow.
Yay, so cool. Woohoo!
Wolf, house and building movers.
It's really happening.
Are moving as fast as they can.
They're making good progress on it. That's what I see.
It's going slow. You don't actually notice that it's moving.
Yep.
The first leg is this 100-yard slog to the south end of the parking lot.
But eventually, in a few weeks, it'll move back to that farm where the trees were cut.
Evans Farms, less than a mile away.
I said bring it to our property, and I think that the farm here will be a good site for it.
Cindy Lou's family still owns it.
The historic Kara Schoolhouse is going to sit right about here at the crest of the hill, and it will face the historic barn. I think the schoolhouse was meant to come back here.
Woo-hoo! Yeah! It's in place for now.
Chris Ritter,
until August,
is president.
Then we're gonna do this again.
Of the Friends of the Karis Historic Schoolhouse. 5 women leading the effort to save the building and turn it into a community center. They've been planning this move since last fall and trying to raise $150,000 to cover it.
We're doing this sort of on a wish and a prayer.
Well, every time they throw a wrench in the works and we have a new challenge, our little group of 5 women just get up and figure it out and whistle up the volunteers, and it happens.
In August, another wrench. Plans to move the school up Highway 213 derailed by utility issues.
We said, okay, we'll take it around the pasture.
Cindy Lou asked neighbors for permission to roll.
He said, I'd be honored to have the school pass through my property.
And pass on through it did, inch by inch, then up a ridge and across Mueller Road to its new home.
After 97 years, it has to live over there next, which is home.
Yeah, it won't be long now.
The Friends,
this is phenomenal,
had a field day.
It's on the move.
Forward progress.
Yep.
Blink, and you won't miss a thing.
You know, it moves slow, but if you turn away for a little bit and then look back, it's moved 10 feet.
Turn away for 2 days.
This is the day we've been waiting for.
And it's moved 3/4 of a mile.
Yep, so we should have it in the hole this afternoon. Make a bunch of people happy.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to try to raise the wires up.
Yeah.
Slightly unbelievable that it's actually happening.
It made it.
Just under the wire.
The little white building that could.
I think I can, I think I can, I think I can.
For the oldest Karis kids.
And in 75, I was in 5th grade and I was in a classroom down below.
This story is their new favorite.
The little engine did it.
It just gives you goosebumps and the history behind it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the home stretch.
As for the future ahead of it, more fundraising. First, to pay for the move.
Save a tree, move a house, you know.
Then, the renovation.
And then we're going to have to run it. So I think I'm in this for the rest of my life.
It is coming. It's coming, Germ. The school is going home.
Oh, it's getting so close. Yes, it's going.
Forward progress.
Yeah, it's sneaking up on me.
It's there. Pretty amazing. You know, it's a huge relief.
Oh my God. Is it time to break out the champagne?
Sometimes.
Who would like to do the honors?
Yay!
Even the littlest moves.
Yeah. Little cups?
No, we need big cups.
Make the biggest impact.
Yes, indeed.
Salud.
In Oregon City.
Yay to you, my sweet white building.
Catherine Cook.
It has finally come home.
KGW News.
It's home.
Wow, what a story. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks for watching. Straight Talk with Laurel Porter is coming up next. And tonight on the late news at 11, don't miss the kickoff of our Friday night football coverage. In the meantime, enjoy your Labor Day weekend, and I'll be back with you on The Story Monday night at 6:30. We'll see you then.